Hi, friend. I'm Randall Terry. How would you like to reach thousands of people with the truth? Maybe tens of thousands, maybe even millions of people through the secular media, through television, radio, newspapers, or how would you like something to go viral? Where you're literally reaching hundreds of thousands or even millions of people with the truth. The truth about child killing, the truth about marriage as God defines it, and therefore as it is. The threat of Islam, maybe an upcoming election, or literally any critical issue that we are facing. I'm going to talk to you about speaking in the public square. The strategies I'm going to share with you are powerful tools in the hands of the righteous. And sadly, these are also powerful tools in the hands of the wicked. And because they're so highly effective, I'm going to give you a step-by-step list, a how-to of instructions. But first, I want to give you some quick credentials. In case you don't know who I am, in case you're young, especially you young people, I'm trying to reach you. I've been doing this, what I'm about to share with you, I've been doing these things for literally over 35 years. I am one of the most widely covered pro-life leaders and Christian activists in the Western Hemisphere. Okay, I've been on television, in newspapers, in the radio. I've been on TV in 6 continents. Okay, I don't know about any television in Antarctica, so I'm going with 6. I've been on Oprah, 60 Minutes, Hannity, all the major networks, on the front page of the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Rolling Stone, Time Magazine, thousands and thousands of stories, articles, TV shows, radio shows. I could literally give you hundreds of examples. I know how this speaking in the public square thing works. And if you will follow these simple instructions I'm going to give you, you stand a good chance of getting press coverage, which spreads your message near and sometimes very far. Now again, this is how to be a spokesman for God's truth in the public square and getting media coverage. This is not about writing letters to the editor or blogging or calling in a radio talk show or even talking with people at work or in church or posting an online Facebook thing or, all of those things have value. Don't get me wrong. But usually those are microcasting, not broadcasting, but microcasting. And they are not nearly as effective as speaking in the public square, okay? I mean, you can write a blog post that abortion is murder, which it is, and you can have a few dozen people, maybe even a few hundred people see it, or you can get on the front page of your local paper or on the evening news or be a guest on a big radio talk show and reach thousands, hundreds of thousands, sometimes even millions, depending on what market you're in, okay? So to put this in a religious context, because I know that I'm predominantly speaking to Christians, except for the times that our enemies are watching this to figure out what we're doing. The word that you might be comfortable with is you're a witness for the truth. You're a prophetic voice. You're a champion of truth. You're behaving as a prophet, a spokesman, a troublemaker, a teacher, rabbi, whatever, a rabble-rouser. We're going to follow the example of the prophets of the Old Testament, the disciples of the New Testament, the saints of the early church, and the political activists and culture warriors in American history that proclaimed the truth and thereby defined the debate and sometimes literally altered the course of nations. I'm going to use 2 illustrations because they're current as I'm filming this for you. Right? You might be watching this years later and you can look back and see, or you might even remember. Example number 1. Several boys in the Covington Catholic High School in Kentucky, northern Kentucky, were accosted by so-called Black Hebrew Israelites. They were cursed at, they were berated, they were bullied. And then an Indian activist, Nathan Phillips, who was later proven to be a brazen liar, he came and beat his drum in the face of the boy. So this image of Nicholas Sandmann made national news for days, and those boys were falsely accused, they were maligned. It was truly evil. Now, sadly, the Catholic Bishop of Covington, Kentucky, Bishop Foys, issued a statement condemning the boys before he had any facts. It was a travesty. It was a miscarriage of justice. Bishop Foyce caved into the evil public pressure and threw those boys under the bus. So I saw all this on television and I was outraged. I was literally incensed. I knew what the truth was. I knew what would happen because I've been in situations like that. So I said, okay, what can I do? So I left the next day for Covington to defend those boys. And then later on, we had some pretty cool results. We had a protest in front of the diocesan office with tons of media coverage in Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky. I spoke to the bishop face to face, and I told him that a shepherd is supposed to protect sheep from the wolves. He instead fed them to the wolves. I told him he needed to protect the boys' dignity and issue an apology. Here's a clip of some of the media coverage that we got. You can see, really direct, really intense. No mincing of words, no equivocation. Well, just a few hours later, the bishop issued an apology. I don't know exactly what role we played in that, but it was significant. So, and then the second illustration is that we are dealing with what happened in New York State, where Mario Cuomo signed into law one of the most damnable, godless, demonic laws in the history of America, where people can murder their unborn babies up until the day of birth. And our message was clear. This is demonic. No Catholic, no Christian can be involved with this man in good conscience. No one can vote for a man like this in good conscience. In fact, my contention is nobody can even remain in the Democrat Party unless they're staying to expose it, to deliberately destroy it from within. But I digress. That's for another discussion. Okay? The simple fact is that the Democrat Party has become the party of death. Now, why do we do the things that we are about to do? Things I'm going to teach you to do. Why do we do them? Well, we do and say the things that some people, by the way, think are outrageous or foolish or confrontational and not nice. Why do we do this? Why do we go to such effort? Two reasons. For time and for eternity. It's for the fruit. What we're doing is to bear fruit here and now in time, and for the record of eternity, things that are being kept for eternity. So in the here and now, in time, we do it because the truth is heard by men and women for their conversion. Truth exists, right? It comes from God. And God wants his truth heard. He wants men and women to come to him. He wants them to repent. God told his prophets to warn people, to call them to repentance. I've got to tell you one quick story. I was on Oprah Winfrey years ago, and two separate women were watching me in two separate states. Both of them were pregnant. Both of them had an abortion schedule. They were planning to kill their baby, and they had an appointment to pay a human being to murder their child. Each of them saw me, and they were broken in their spirit. They said, no, I can't go through with it. And each of them, in turn, sought me out over a year later and then showed me their little babies. I have pictures. It's so awesome. So speaking publicly impacts people for time. Let me quote to you from the book of Ezekiel. God said, Son of man, I am sending you to the Israelites, to a rebellious nation that has rebelled against me. They and their ancestors have been in revolt against me to this very day. The people to whom I am sending you are they're obstinate and stubborn. Say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. And whether they listen or fail to listen, for they are a rebellious people, they will know that a prophet has been among them. And you, son of man, do not be afraid of them or their words. Do not be afraid, though briars and thorns are all around you and you live among scorpions. Do not be afraid of what they say or be terrified by them, though they are a rebellious people. You must speak my words to them, whether they listen or fail to listen, for they are rebellious. But you, son of man, listen to what I say to you. Don't be like that rebellious people. Open your mouth and eat what I give you. He also said, and this is even a little more frightening, he said, Son of man, I've made you a watchman for the people of Israel. So hear the word I speak and give them warning from me. When I say to a wicked person, you will surely die, and you do not warn them or speak out to dissuade them from their evil ways in order to save their life, That wicked person will die for their sin, and I will hold you accountable for their blood. So one of the reasons that we do what we do is for the conversion of people, but also is for our sake, because we will give an account for what we have done and what we have failed to do for God. Another reason we do it is that evil and injustice in this world are in part defeated by being exposed. We expose evil and we confront them for what they are, evil and injustice. God wants babies to be rescued. He wants evil to be defeated. St. John the Apostle wrote, "For this reason was the Son of God manifested, that he might destroy the works of the devil." If you and I are going to be like Christ, we need to be devil's works destroyers, right? And there are certain things in this planet, deeds that are evil, lies that are from hell. And to defeat those lies and to defeat those evils, the truth must be heralded and embraced by people, and then it must prevail. Another reason that we do this is so that the lies of evil people do not have the playing field to themselves. You've seen how this happens when a story is being covered in the press. It just begins to snowball, and the boys in Covington are guilty. And then people like us stand up and say, whoa, 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 that is not true, and the bishop needs to apologize. Then there's a debate. You've got to have a debate. If lies are out there, the truth must come in conflict with those lies. And it's sort of like the emperor's new clothes. Remember the little boy? Everyone was going along with this charade. They wanted to be sophisticated. And the little boy said, "Mommy, the emperor's naked." And that leads to the next point, is it gives other people the freedom to speak the truth. When you start telling the truth, others are inspired to speak the truth. They're emboldened when they see and hear you. In fact, they can quote you. So there's a lot of great reasons why we do and say certain things for the sake of time, this world. But there's also benefits for eternity. There's a quote that's very famous. It's attributed to Martin Luther, but he clearly didn't make it, but it's still a great quote. He said, "If I profess with the loudest voice and the clearest exposition every portion of the truth of God, except precisely that little point which the world and the devil are at that moment attacking, I am not confessing Christ, however boldly I may be professing Christianity. Where the battle rages, the loyalty of the soldier is proved, and to be steady on all the battlefields besides is mere flight and disgrace to him if he flinches at that one point." Now, a perfect illustration of this, two perfect illustrations, are child killing and so-called homosexual marriage. You've had Christian denominations and Christian leaders stumbling over themselves to run to embrace these two abominable evils, two of the sins that cry to God for vengeance, for judgment. So they want to say they're professing Christianity, but they have flinched. They have betrayed God in time and in eternity. So we speak the truth for eternity, for a record. I mean, we have videotapes down here. Do you think that God doesn't have them in heaven? Do you think that we could have some technology that God doesn't have? He has a record for the day of judgment. The books are opened. And we're laying a record for the day of judgment for men and nations. So not just nations, but for the souls. We're laying a record for the souls you've been reaching. I've told people to their face, my words will testify against you on the day of judgment. My words will testify against you. You heard the truth and you rejected it. You have blood on your hands. I've told this right to the face of people who are promoting child killing and defending the child killers. You will face God with blood on your hands unless you repent and receive the forgiveness of Jesus Christ. And I will be there to testify against you, or my words will be there. So again, it's for eternity. And whether God chooses to use you in a big way or a small way, well, let's say if he uses you in a big way, well, then you're going to leave a record for an entire state or an entire nation. I mean, think about the book of Jeremiah. Think about Ezekiel. Think about different people throughout history who prophesied and were faithful to speak the truth at a moment of crisis, and their words are ringing to us and inspiring us to this very day. And there's one other reason for eternity that we do these things, friend. It's for ourselves. It's so that we might hear God say, "Well done, good and faithful servant." We will give an account. And I think that some of the most damning sins, the most dangerous sins, are the sins of omission, the sins of silence, the things that we should have done but we didn't do, the things we should have said but we didn't say because we were afraid. All right. One other quick thing. I'm setting the table for you, all right? This is a kind of a also ran, and some of you just watch this whole few minutes together. But there's some people that need to hear this, and it's about being comrades in battle. This is a quick thought I need to give you about the divisions in Christianity, okay? Catholics, Protestants, independent evangelicals, mainline denominations, sacraments. Do you baptize your babies? Do you baptize 7-year-olds, 12-year-olds? Do you speak in tongues? Do you believe in cessation of the gifts? All this stuff. Listen, that's not what this is about, okay? And some of the divisions in Christianity are deep, all right? And in points in the past, they have been bitter and bloody. I understand that. But in this hour, the forces of darkness are arrayed against Christianity, okay? Christians, listen, a Muslim terrorist would just as soon cut off your head as opposed to the head of any denomination that you think isn't even Christian. Do you understand? Think of Corrie ten Boom in prison, in the concentration camp, that great Christian woman. She said, when we were locked up together by the Nazis, it suddenly didn't matter what denomination we were. We all knew that we were followers of Christ and that we loved Jesus. And there we were together. So all of that to say, we must be willing to stand shoulder to shoulder with those who love Christ that are from different streams of Christianity. There's an old saying, it's a kind of a joke, a man's best friend is his dogma. So I get that. I get it. Our dogma is really important to us. But if let me give you an illustration. I'll give you two illustrations. Number one is the Good Samaritan. Have you ever thought about the insult that Christ gave to the people who had the right theology? So let's just assume for a minute that your denomination has the right theology, whatever it is, and you're part of that club. Well, then let's assume that the priest and the Levite who walked by the man dying in the ditch also were in that club. The priest walked by and left the man to die. The Levite walked by, left the man to die. And then Jesus chooses a hero, a Samaritan. Now, you cannot grasp the insult that he was giving the Jews who were listening to him unless you know the history of the Samaritans. They were despised. They were not true-blooded Jews. They were worshiping falsely. They were literally loathed by the Jews. You can see that in John chapter 4. Well, Jesus made the Samaritan the hero. So he basically said, all you people think you've got great doctrine, but to really love God and to love your neighbor means that when your neighbor is in danger, you save your neighbor's life. That's what it means. So saving your neighbor's life, how about saving your own child? Here's the second illustration, then I'll move on, right? If your child was drowning and it took you and one other person to save your little girl or your little boy, and you were saying, help me, and someone came up to help you save your child in imminent danger of death, would you stop that person and say, wait, before I work with you, do you pray the rosary? Do you speak in tongues? How many books do you think there are in the Bible? Do you baptize infants? Are you Roman Catholic? Are you Greek Orthodox? Are you Episcopalian? Are you a Methodist? Are you Assemblies of God? No, you wouldn't say that. No. You would do everything in your power to save your child and to ask the help of another person. So I put the simple question to you. Why is your child more important than someone else's child? Babies are dying. They're being butchered. And they deserve to be rescued. And if I have to stand shoulder to shoulder with people who are from different Christian denominations, or dare I say it, if I have to save them with a Samaritan. The Samaritans weren't even true believers. I will do it. I'll save a child with somebody because the battle in hand, that's the battle that matters at that moment. You can go out later and discuss and debate all your theological differences all you want and try and convert each other. That's not what this is about. This is about stopping the shedding of innocent blood and restoring America to righteousness. And if you won't work with anyone else from another denomination, then just go your way, because you're like the priest and the Levite. You're part of the problem. You're not part of the solution. But if you will work with other people and you want to learn how to be a prophetic witness to the world, to your community, to your state, I'm going to tell you right now. All right. Here's the how-to. That's the why. That was why we did it. Now here's the how-to. Right? How to be heard in the public square. You ready? The first and the most important part of this exercise for you is that you make a decision. I am going to do this. And that's it. Period. You're going to do it. You decide that you're going to do or to say something in a specific situation regarding a specific battle or a cause or an issue in a specific window of time. Okay? I'm going to do this on Friday morning. I'm going to do this on Thursday afternoon. All right? So if there's something, what I'm about to talk to you about is a defensive posture, but it's very valuable. When something or someone is in the news, okay, an attack on unborn babies and on marriage, the courts attacking our liberties, the boys up at the Catholic high school being falsely accused, an Islamic terrorist attack, whatever it is, there's so many. I mean, there are so many life and death, critical, crucial battles in our day. That's the time that you have a window to say something and to be heard. And you've got a short window, so you've got to move quickly, all right? The most important thing in this whole lesson that you can take away with it, literally this whole 20 minutes that we're together, the most important thing is that you come away with this: I am going to do this come hell or high water, even if I have to do it and say it alone. All right, one other caveat. You've got to be willing to die to yourself. You've got to be willing to have your reputation tarnished, right? Jesus said, "Blessed are you when you are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for my name's sake," he said. "Blessed are you when men hate you, revile you, cast your name out as evil, say all manner of evil against you falsely. They falsely accuse you. They separate you from their company. They don't invite you to the party." He said, "In that day, rejoice. Leap for joy." Why? Because that's the way they treated the prophets who were before you. Remember I said we're going to take our example from the Old Testament prophets? Well, Jesus said, if there's going to be times when you do and say the right thing and you will suffer for it, just like the prophets suffered for it. So don't whine and cry. Rejoice. Leap for joy. Jesus said, "For your great is your reward in heaven." So you've got to be willing to be controversial. And if you equivocate, well, we're just sharing our opinion. No. If you equivocate, you will not have a clear message. You must say abortion is murder. In Covington, Kentucky, we said to the bishop, you must apologize to the boys publicly. We said a shepherd protects sheep from the wolves. There's no equivocation there. Everyone understood exactly what we were saying. And there are some evils that are so heinous, they require you to be shrill. You cannot overstate the evil of ripping a baby limb from his or her mother's womb. And I'm going to tell you, street theater can be very effective, a very effective way to get your message out. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But we've done a lot of skits over the years and had a ton, literally millions of people have seen us making a point with street theater and preaching and then doing a stand-up interview where you look calm and sane. But if you give the media a word picture with your mouth, but also a picture with signs or with actors, you stand a much better chance of being heard. So it's really critical when you recruit people to join you in doing what you're doing. You are not asking them, please hear me, you're not asking them, hey, what do you think about this? I'm thinking about doing such and such. What's your opinion? No, you say to them, I'm doing this. Will you please join me? Yes or no? You ask for a specific commitment on a specific day. All right? Because if you don't, you're not going to get a commitment. And if someone says, I'll think about it, that means no. If someone says, I'll pray about it, that usually means no. So you have to know why you're doing something. You have to decide, I am going to do this. And you have to be willing to recruit people and work with people that are not in your stream of Christianity. And you have to be willing to suffer the loss of your reputation. All right? Now, I'm going to walk you through some of the details of this process of what you need to do so that you can be seen and heard. All right? These are specific steps that you take in order to get media coverage. Are you hearing me? Or to get social, whatever that stuff is called, the social media coverage. I'm showing my age. 49 years old and holding. All right. I've said it to you before. You decide you're going to do something. You speak up. The boys in Kentucky, the babies, whatever. And you remember that time is of the essence. Please hear me. Write this down. Remember this. You've got a window of time. That's the way news cycles work. If you don't move while the item is hot, you're going to miss your window. You might want to plan for a month and not get a really big crowd. And guess what? You're going to get zero coverage. Let's say that Hillary Clinton or Elizabeth Warren or some godless baby-killing monster, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, any one of these treacherous evildoers, let's say they're going to come to your town. And you know that it's going to be 2 nights from now. They're going to come. All the press is going to be there. And you say, oh, I'm going to protest them coming. Now, they're going to be here in 2 days, but I don't have that. I can't pull it together that fast. I'll have my protest 2 weeks later. Do you think you're going to get coverage? You think the press is going to come out and cover you at the location where they were 2 weeks after the fact? No. You have to move quickly, and you have to hold up signs, and you have to have your sound bites ready. You're going to get zero coverage if you don't do it in a timely fashion when the thing is hot. So if there's something in the news right now on a national level and you know that you need a prophetic witness, figure out a location. Maybe it's the office of your U.S. Senator. Maybe it's the office of your governor. Maybe it's the office of your U.S. House member. Maybe it's the Planned Parenthood. Maybe it's, you fill in the blank. But go there and hold a demonstration, a protest, a rally, a press conference. Have eye candy. Have things that they can see, the media can see. Strike while the iron is hot. Don't miss your window of opportunity. So you decide, I'm going to do this. You immediately start to call people and ask them to join you. Leaving messages doesn't count. Email doesn't count. Yes, recruit with email and leave a message and Facebook or whatever. But you've got to beg people. You've got to cajole them. You've got to plead. Bodies matter. The number of people you have there helps. If there's 4 of you, you'll probably get coverage. If there's 40 of you, you're more likely to get coverage. All right? So beg people and then say to them, will you join me, please? And then shut up. Just wait. Will you join me, please? The first to talk loses. Don't say, well, go ahead and pray about it. No, you just gave them an out. Ask them, will you join me, please? And they say, oh, I'm not sure if I can get off. Then I follow up, please try and get off. Please, I'll make it up to you. I'll owe you, whatever you got to say, but you got to urge people to come. Leadership, one of the great definitions I heard of leadership was getting people to do what they don't want to do, and they end up enjoying it. And that can happen over and over. So when we did this thing up in Covington, Kentucky, and 50 things like it over the years, or 100 things, hundreds of things, I knew we had a short window of time. So I decided we're going. I talked to some of the members on our team and I said, will you please join me? We had to drive, I don't even know how many hours, 7 hours, 8 hours. We jumped in the vehicle and I'm calling people all the way up there. Please get people out with me. Please help me. And well, I'm busy. Well, no, please just unbusy. Please. So we got there and we ended up having 10 people in front of the diocesan office. Only 10. I was disappointed. I thought we could get more, but we had to move quick. But guess what? Half of those 10 were one mom and her 4 homeschool kids. Half of the crowd. And that mom did not want to go. They weren't even Catholic. But I kept begging her. Said, please, 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 I'll owe you. No, we're busy, we're homeschooling. Just please come. Please come. I need you to come. She finally said, okay, Randall, fine. And she came, and then there the cameras were going to her and interviewing her and her kids. It was hysterical. But sometimes you just have to literally beg. And she did want to show her support for the boys. And she knew that the bishop was wrong, but she did it as a favor to me because I just kept asking. All right, here's another thing you do. Ready? Run to Office Max, Office Depot, Buy the big poster board, buy some Sharpies, and make signs. Short signs. Don't write a paragraph. A camera has to be able to take a picture of it, see it, and put it on the front page. Or a TV camera has to be able to see it, and the people watching at home on their television have to be able to read it. All right, that's called a graphic. Okay? You need to have a graphic. And it needs to be clear. Make them readable. Less is more in those situations. They don't have to be works of art. If they are works of art, that's great. But it's okay if they look like they were made in a hurry, because they were. If you want them to be works of art, fine, but they don't have to be. All right? Speed matters. If you have someone coming to town who's a hero or a villain, get out there with signs supporting them or condemning whatever it is that they're doing. Create a fuss against evil. Create a fuss in support of justice. So in Lexington, you could see the signs, how simple they were. All right, we made signs that were right on point with poster board and Sharpies. And there they were, splattered all over in an area that has, I don't know, 2.4 million people or something. It's a very large area, the Cincinnati up to Dayton, northern Kentucky. It works. Here's another thing you do. Ready? Get your sound bites ready. It means, in other words, know what you're going to say. A soundbite is a cohesive thought that you can say in 6 to 10 seconds. That's it. If you're going to have some long, rambling answer, it's never going to make it on the air, or it's going to get cut in a way that makes no sense or that you're not happy with. So we had sound bites. And by the way, it's okay to practice your sound bites. Say them over and over. Bishop Foys is supposed to be a shepherd of the sheep, and yet he threw those boys to the wolves. He needs to apologize. That's it. That was 7 seconds. And that quote said it all and got on the news all over the place. Here's something else. In addition to having your sound bites ready, be prepared to ignore a question. Okay? Stay on point with your soundbite. So sometimes media people will ask you a question just to throw you off. Stop and think about it and say, what does this have to do with what we're talking about? And then give the answer that's your soundbite, that says what you want to say. You don't have to answer a question, especially if you know that it's a trap. Aren't you here because you hate women's rights? I don't hate women's rights. Don't answer the question. You say, we are here because babies are being butchered, and half the babies who are being killed are women. So we're standing up for those women's rights. Boom. Just stay on point. And we were interrupted in Covington by a man who wanted to debate and he was clearly not all there. Wouldn't give his name to the press. He just yelled at me saying I was a racist, blah, blah, blah. It was really funny. I did my best to not engage him. I mean, believe me, there was a little dialogue, but I didn't say anything that I could have said because I didn't want to give the press a soundbite. And a lot of the press just ignored him. Here's another point. Pick your location, and it needs to make sense, okay? We went to the school, to Covington High School. No media were there. Maybe one media was there. But I knew if we went to the diocesan office, to the cathedral, we were going to get a ton of press because that's ground zero for the bishop apologizing. So pick a location that makes sense and pick your time. All right, here's another point. Pick a time that makes sense. Don't do it at 6 in the morning and don't do it at 5 at night. You've missed the deadline. If you do something at 5 at night, unless it's a really big deal that's an enemy's event, like Nancy Pelosi is coming to a fundraiser in your town at 5 p.m., well then the media are going to be there anyway. So you're going to get coverage, but it's going to be the 11 o'clock news or the next morning. But if you have your own little event at 5 p.m., you can promise yourself and everyone who's there with you that you will be ignored by the press. And then you can't go, oh, when they don't care what we're doing, they ignored us. No, they ignored you because you missed the deadline. They have a deadline. So for the 6 p.m. news, they better have the stories in the can by 3 or 3:30 because they have to go home and they have to edit it. And they have to choose what images they're going to use. They have to fix the sound. That's just a reality. Same with journalists for newspapers. They have a deadline for the next day paper that's earlier in the day than you think. All right? So pick a time that makes sense. Now, if they have a live feed, satellite truck there, if the end is big enough, they'll cover you live. That'll be cool. That happened many times. Or they'll use the interview on tape for later. All right, next. Write a press release. And your press release should be around 200 or 300 words. No more. All right, no more. This is not a treatise. It's not a letter to the editor. It's a notice of an event. You can see some of these press releases. They're very Spartan. They're very simple. You have contact information, the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why. That's it. Short, to the point. Maybe put one or two sound bites in there, one or two quotes, and that gives the idea to the press. So that's what's in your press release. Now here's the big thing. You ready? You contact the press a day ahead of time. Go to their website, find the phone number of the newsroom or the assignment editor. Okay? Now on that page, there's going to be a phone number and an email address for the assignment editor or the newsroom. When you call that number, usually the person who picks up the phone is the person who assigns a story. Hi, this is Randall Terry. We're going to be in Covington because of Bishop Foy's, what he did. If you look me up online, you'll see I've done a lot of pro-life activity, including in your area, and we're going to say the bishop needs to apologize. I'm going to send you an email. So pause. They're going to say, okay. And then you say, all right, I sent it. Can you check the inbox to see if it's there? Or call them back in 10 minutes and say that. Short, to the point, but you've got to make contact. Don't just email it, because they're going to get a ton of requests in their inbox that they ignore. But a phone call says, I'm a professional. I understand how this works. I'm calling you to let you know that we're doing this, and I'm sending you an email. And then I'll oftentimes call back a half hour later to confirm that they got it or to see if they're able to assign somebody to the story. All right? Always talk to the assignment desk. And by the way, leaving a message does not count. So you'll see news hotline, and that's a place for them to steer lunatics. That's a place to steer people who say, there's a cat stuck up in the tree, and they waste the time with a very small staff at a newsroom. They don't want to talk to those people. So they have a news hotline. It might get looked at that day. It might not get looked at for a week. It's just that simple. So leaving a message does not count. So we called in Covington and we talked to every single news editor, and lo and behold, they all showed up. All the networks came, the newspaper came, National Public Radio came, NPR. So it works. All right, then hold your event. And make sure that you have one of your friends there to take pictures or someone there to take video. Obviously, now we've got our phones that we can use. It's effective, it's clear, and you can show people, hey, this is what we did. You can put it online on Facebook or YouTube or whatever to show people this is what it looks like. So you're doing what you do for time and eternity. Remember that, right? So for those passing by, you impact them. Maybe you'll get no press coverage whatsoever, but if 800 or 1,200 or 3,000 people drive by and see you there while you're holding up signs, you're reaching those. And for those who see you on social media, you're reaching them. And you're giving a good example of courage. And that is of great value. So sometimes I've been skunked. I make no bones about it. There have been times I did an event. I thought this is great, perfectly timed. We're going to get coverage, and nothing. It happens. It just does. I've had events of ours interrupted in the middle of the event. Like suddenly they're breaking down their cameras and running because they got a phone call about an emergency that they needed to cover. So you can't control all of this. But if you'll take these steps, you will greatly improve your chances of being covered. And if it's timely and it's hot in the news, you're going to get covered. And if you're covered in the news, you go from reaching a few people at church or a couple hundred people with a blog or letter, to your friends. You go to reaching tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or even millions of people with the truth. And that is what we must do. Now, one last thing. If you look in the Bible and you study Ezekiel, Jeremiah, other prophets in the scriptures, you will see that there were many times when God asked them to do something that at first blush was a little on the crazy side, at least humanly speaking. Lord, please forgive me. I don't mean God's crazy. Like Ezekiel, he said, build a little city, make it clay, lay on your side, prophesy against it, cut your hair, shave your head. He was humiliating Ezekiel. Ezekiel knew that this was going to humiliate. He shaved his head and he was burning parts of his hair and scattering parts of his hair to the wind. And it was a word picture. It was actually a skit to show the people of Israel that were watching him that God was going to bring judgment on them. And one time God said to him, I want you to lay on your side, I want you to cook food with human feces as your fuel. So just think of the stench and how horrible it was. And Ezekiel begged God, said, no, please, God, please, I've never eaten anything unclean. Because literally the smoke of that human feces getting into his food, it repulsed him. So God said, okay, cook with cow dung. But he said, I want the people of Israel to know that they're going to be eating rancid food soon. I'm going to judge them. And you're showing an illustration of what's going to happen. And the reason I say that is because we do things and say things that some people consider extreme. These are people who either don't know their Bible or they're just afraid. Because if they knew their Bible, they would see the examples over and over again. And with Jesus himself, throwing tables around, chasing people with a whip, calling people really mean names. They want to be nicer than Jesus. They don't want to be like the prophets in the Bible. They don't want to do that. They want to be nicer than Christ. They want to be nicer than the prophets. They want everyone to like them. And Jesus said, woe to you when all men speak well of you. That's how they treated the false prophets who were before you. So sometimes you're going to do things that other people think are a little crazy. They're not crazy. And you've got a lot of precedent in the scriptures. Friend, you can be heard. Do this, what I'm telling you. Watch this again. Take the steps I'm telling you. Do what I'm telling you. And you're going to be heard. And then the next time you hold an event or the next time you make a statement, you'll find that you even get more media coverage because they know, hey, this guy's got the goods. This gal is good. She's clear, spoken sound bites. She was professional to work with. You can be heard. We are in a crisis in our nation. Evil is more rampant today than it was 30 years ago. It's unthinkable how evil we have become as a people. And we've got to push back. We've got to push back. And that takes conflict, controversy. It takes difficult steps to do. It takes being willing to surrender our reputation. But if you do, in time you'll impact people. And eternity, please God, let it be so. We will hear the Lord say to us, well done, good and faithful servant. And if they do deride you, and if they do mock you, and they cast your name out as evil, and if they falsely accuse you, oh, he just wants to get attention, blah, blah, blah. If all that happens to you and you lose friends, do what Jesus said. Remember, that's how they treated the prophets who were before you. Rejoice, leap for joy, because great is your reward in heaven. Be like the prophet Elijah and learn to play to an audience of one. God bless you.